in the summer, where you hear that the way that's the end of Eruption on the debut album, that wonderful tapping, those triplets, ascending and descending triplets. Those demos, I think, would just do it for me. That'd be the place to start, and I hope they can do that.
Do you think Guitar World will continue to have the same close relationship that it had with Eddie, with Wolf?
It's hard to say. We would hope so. It'd be awesome to continue with that. I loved talking with Wolfgang. I love talking with Wolf and Ed together. Wolf's extremely talented. Yep. He's carrying the banner, he's carrying the torch.
Mm-hmm.
I felt bad for the guy knowing that he had so much of that album done, and it had to be put off for so long for various reasons. The most important reason was just spending quality time with his dad while he was still around, and there was, of course, the talk about the big tour,
mm-hmm.
Getting back together, the classic lineup, and then maybe even bringing all the singers in and everything. And, and the kid was such a trooper for putting that aside, to let all these things work out and everything. But yeah, I really hope so. I have faith that will continue. Again, he's kind of the new hope out there.
What did you think of his new album?
It kicks ass. He's a Van Halen.
Yeah.
He's got his own spin on things.
Yep.
I think he needs to find his voice. He's absorbed a lot of influences, and you can hear those, but I think he's going to really find his voice on the next record, and we're going to really hear what he can really do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just to wrap up, guys, what do you want the readers to get out of this book? And from each of you, what would you like the readers to take away?
Well, for me, I felt like everything that all the other books that have come out in the past sort of captured a small slice of what Ed Van Halen is. The Runoff book, which is excellent, but only covers a certain narrow period of time. The same thing with the Ted Templeman book. The Sammy Hagar book captured a really tough period of time. And, you had Valerie Bertinelli's perspective. But I felt like our book really is the first book to take into account the whole story from the time in Holland up to his death, sort of create a coherent view of his evolution as a human being. And if you really want to understand who Ed is, you'll read this book. And we tell you what our opinion of the events are. But even if you don't trust that, you'll hear what Ed has to say in his own words.
Sure.
I think for me, it's a really good glimpse into a creative genius, and kind of, he was a complicated man. He wasn't, everybody thinks of Ed, the Smiling Eddie, and, definitely in the early, the 84, my God, that smile, but we had that period where that smile started to vanish, and it came back again, and especially 2012 and 2015, and I think there's an arc to his life, there's this rise and there's this fall and there's redemption. It's really, Ed is much more fascinating. He's not just some guy who played guitar in a band that sold a lot of records. He was a very creative person. He was down to earth, yet he was surprisingly intellectual at the same time. And I think it's just there's so many more dimensions to him than just what we know from the concert appearances and the videos.
Let me tell you guys that Chris did some incredible scholarship and research on the guitar evolution of Ed.
Yep.
Nobody's quite gotten that story right.
Okay.
There's a lot of bad information out there, a lot of false information. And I think that Chris really did an incredible job tying up a lot of the loose ends of, when Frankenstein was developed and the evolution of, some of the techniques that Ed used. I don't want to say that this is just a nerdy guitar book, but there's an aspect to it that desperately needed to be straightened out. And I think this is the first book to really do that.
It is a big part of who he was. I mean, it's just like, you look at the EVH company, that's just unprecedented. And the obsession that went into the Wolfgang guitar. I mean, what's in the book only just scratches the surface of it, but I didn't want to bore people with the details. But man, that guy was just every single detail, down to the screws that were put into the wood. He was just a man who really had this other understanding. He wasn't like a luthier, he wasn't a craftsman, or anything like that, but he knew as a player what a guitar really needed. And I think a lot of people just look at, they look at especially a lot of the early stuff and everything like that, but this is ongoing. He was constantly searching and constantly educating himself about how things work. I think to see that, he was as much an inventor as he was a musician.
It was incredible. And like I can tell all of you guys, this book is so worth every penny that it costs, and it's not even expensive. So thank you so much both for coming on here and spending the time. We want everyone who listens to this podcast, this is required reading. The material that we were talking about here is just a small portion of what is in this book. It is really well laid out, and like Chris had just mentioned and Brad mentioned as well, there is almost another book within the book. So Chris's work about all the guitars are layered in between all the chapters. So it's almost like you get a bonus book inside the book. That could almost be a book in and of itself, if you think about it. This is really comprehensive. These two guys have spent a lot of time, probably more time than most, at 5150 that are not attached to the band from an inside level, but to two journalists who have done such an incredible job. All of the books that we have read through the years, I really think that this trumps all of them because it has that flavor. You're getting Ed's words direct. You're hearing from Gary Sharon. You're hearing from Ray Daniels. You're hearing from Michael Anthony. They've got Steve Vai in there as well, giving perspective. It really is a beautiful, beautiful piece. Congratulations to you both. I want to thank you so much for your generous time here.
You guys, this is the first major sort of interview Chris and I have given, and I know how much you guys care about Ed and his legacy, and we really appreciate the time and the compliments over the book.
I'm happy to do it.
Thank you. We certainly appreciate your time talking about it.
Yeah,
we're definitely big proponents of keeping the Van Halen legacy alive, even if the band itself isn't so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's my thing. I mean, that's unfortunate. As soon as I found out Ed died, I wrote to, the people closest to him, just saying a thing, whatever I can do to help you guys keep Ed alive that's my goal. That's my drive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
he meant so much to me on a personal level
sure.
that I just to repay the favor,
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much. Best of luck with the book. I think you're going to hit it right out of the park. I can't wait for everybody to order it. Amazon, any other places you want them to get it?
It's probably Amazon. I don't know what else there is.
I don't know where else there is, right? It's amazing.
We want a trip to the moon, so we're going to say Amazon.
Exactly. Amazon.
Wise
choice. Really excited about it, and you guys should be very proud. I hope you get some accolades from Wolf or some of the guys in the band, because I think you really did a nice job about putting it all together, and it's the most comprehensive and the most well put together. I would say it's very digestible, even for those who aren't guitarists. So I think you really killed it. So thanks again for the time, guys. We're happy to promote it for you.
Whoa! How about that for rock video music fans? Live all day, all night. You know what you need? Only right here on Dave TV.
Check us out on Facebook at Dave and Dave Unchained, a Van Halen podcast, on Twitter at DD Unchained, on Instagram at DD Unchained Podcast, and you can email us at ddunchainedpodcast@gmail.com.
Did you get everything that you guys needed out of us?
Yes, absolutely. As much as I don't want to take any more of your time, but I read the book in a very tight period of time, and I read slow. But this was material that I love, so I really spent a lot of time with it. So I really enjoy it. I'm gonna have to reread it just to get all the real small details and absorb those too.
It was not hard to keep reading it because I read it too under a tight time frame.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like, oh my God, I got to keep reading this thing because I got to talk to these guys. I was just like, you know what?
Flowed.
I was chapter after chapter, and I like the way you broke it up with the guitar interludes
Yep.
and the interviews. So,
Mm-hmm.
And you hit the high points or the fascinating parts of the band's career.
Sure.
Not only of the band's career, but of Ed's career, not only with music, but with the guitars and the guitar company and all that.
You really get a feel for Ed. I mean, even if you never ever knew what he was like and you just heard his music and you read the book, you really got inside him. It's not easy to do, as you guys well know. He's sort of a guarded dude, or was a guarded dude, but you really got a feel for him and who he was and where he was coming from and the perspective of time. I mean, I happen to love all the albums, including Van Halen 3. I kind of pick apart all of the bones and really enjoy all the parts. I think Balance is highly, highly underrated.
Absolutely, yeah.
The very, very glossed over album that's just not fair, between the Amsterdam lyrics and the poppy sheen of Can't Stop Loving You and Not Enough. I think so much got lost in the sauce on that album, but there's some brilliant stuff on there. My only complaint about that album is they should have kept Crossing Over on the album. That was an amazing track. I thought that was blisteringly incredible.
Oh, I agree. It's funny because it's like I said, that was my first interview with Ed. That was just like I heard all that stuff, including Crossing Over, when the album came out. I was like, what the heck? And I found out I had to get a Japanese import to get my own copy of it. You know?
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. And I actually I got the Japanese import cut of Wolf's album that has Talk and Walk, which I'm enjoying as well too. So,
oh wow,
but yeah, lots of good stuff. We tell our listeners all the time to, go over some of these albums that you kind of like, stuff that you brushed over, you know what I mean? I happen to like a lot of the stuff on Van Halen 3, and even though I do think it needed a producer to tighten the whole thing up, and it definitely was a totally different direction for the band, but there's some really cool stuff on there.
Ed's playing is just amazing on that record. I mean, that's what really got to me, and especially
absolutely.
Hearing Ed talk about just how bummed out he was, and how he thought, he personally thought it was his best playing on that record, but if you just really focus on the guitar, it's amazing.
Yeah,
No, his playing is great, but like you guys said, he was in control mode at that time, and there was nobody there to rein him in, to bounce ideas off of, to say, hey, Ed, maybe you want to think about this, maybe you want to, think about...
you need to trim this here,
His brother was not going to go against him.
Yeah.
Mike had pretty much tossed it aside except for 3 songs. Gary was used to working with a guitarist who was leading the way.
Yeah.
So that was a natural fit. And, like you said, Ray was kind of not being disruptive. He was in Canada. And the producer had never really done a rock album before. So, Confucius says, be careful what you want. You may get it.
Yeah.
What happened.
True.
That's very true. Well, guys, thanks again, and best of luck with everything. We hope you really go into multiple printings.
Cool. Well, thanks. This is really a lot of fun, too, so it's great for us.
We're more than happy to do it again, and if you guys want to bring Ray Daniels with you next time, I think we could have a group chat.
Yeah,
I think
that'd be
great.
We'll get
You never know. We might be able to swing that. You never know.
We will not say no, and we will make ourselves available for that. And we promise we will be objective. And
Of course.
Sounds good.
Absolutely.
Hey, I will say this just, to you guys. It's like I was kind of with a lot of the fans that I was very anti-Ray Daniels, and I kind of bought this whole thing that he manipulated all this stuff, and that he was the one behind, Gary, and it was the whole, discussion with him. Really, I came to appreciate what he did, It was a new perspective. It was really great to get his perspective in his own words on what actually happened.
I tell you,
that's what we would love to do. We'd love to hear his voice, on the matter, because, all you ever hear is Sammy spouting. And the truth is always somewhere in the middle, and I certainly love to hear, Ray's perspective on it.
Oh yeah, I mean the guy managed Rush for all this time. He can't be bad.
Exactly. And,
no, he can't. But the thing about Rush is they'd been working together for so long. I mean, they were almost on autopilot.
They're lower maintenance. But listen, the other thing is, in regards to that matter, I like what Chris said. I felt that way. But then after reading your interview, I came to a realization that I think he worked very hard as their manager, but I think Van Halen needed a different kind of manager. Like Ed Loeffler was like a father figure manager. He was like taking care of everything, whereas Ray was more like a business manager. Like he was bringing money in, and he was getting deals, and he was renegotiating with Warner Brothers, and he got them better royalty rates and all kinds of stuff. But then other people were like, well, did they really need to do the milk ad? You know what I mean? Like, it's just like there's certain things like that for fans rolled their eyeballs at, but he was probably trying to get them exposure, trying to get them, money, this and that, and to keep things flowing, give them, all kinds of stuff. The Twister soundtrack, that whole situation was unique. I mean, yeah, he got them into a big hit Warner Brothers movie. He figures their video would get out there and all that stuff, but the timing was tight. And, you have to remember when Sammy came into, again, the biggest factor, Sammy's 7 years older.